Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 20, the big 20, which has taken me years to get to, unfortunately. Thank you for returning and listening, and thank you, new listeners. And hey, thank you for everybody who joined the Discord since last week. I really appreciate you. It has been so nice just to communicate and talk with role players. So if you're a role player, please feel free to come in to the Discord and just have a chat with us. There's so many of us in there. Today I'm talking to a man named Ryan, who I said made an application, my own words, last week. And the application isn't out yet, but he did want to come on to the podcast to talk about it because it is a role-playing application for people who have ADHD like myself. And I was very interested in talking with him about this to see sort of how it worked. So, let's bring him in. Brian, you have made an app, which is why you are here today. You've made an app, and we want to talk about that app. But you're also a role player. And how did you go from getting into role playing to making an app about ADHD? Like that's the biggest question I want to ask today. But before we do that, I know there are people out there who are not sure what ADHD is, and that's attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I have it. I don't know if you have it. I think you have it because you made an app for it.
I do. Yeah, I was diagnosed with it just 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was diagnosed before I was 10.
I know. It's actually kind of this like clubbed like late lifers is what they call it, late lifer diagnosis.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel late life, but that's just the term they put on it. Yeah, it was I don't know, just one of those things where when I was diagnosed, it started making a lot more sense. And I stopped joking about having ADHD and realized I actually had it.
Oh yeah. See, I try not to use the phrase I'm OCD because I know OCD is a very serious thing to some people. So I try not to use that terminology at all. I try not to use things like, oh, I'm OCD, I am ADHD. So I do say that sometimes because someone sometimes will ask, how did you get to this point of the conversation when we were just talking about that? And then I have to explain the roundabout reason how I got to this point in the conversation that seems completely unrelated to what we were just talking about.
Yeah, that's so normal though.
I know. I think it's normal. I think it's normal because you could just mention your shirt, which is red, which will remind me of this thing that I read in some sort of culture that was also red, and then I'll talk to you about that cultural thing that I just learned about, and you're like, we were talking about a tablecloth. Why are you now talking about history in Mexico?
And now I'm just thinking of the red chest from Baldur's Gate 3 last night.
There we go. And that leads me to the Red Prince because we're talking about Baldur's Gate, and this is leading me down a rabbit hole. So talk to me about what ADHD is and like your journey with it and why you decided to make an app for it.
Ooh, yeah. I like that you actually got specific with your question here. Let me go to my website to look at my notes.
I should probably pull out my notes.
Well, first, let me rewind just a little bit, just for clarity, for listening. We are making an app. It's not out yet, so right. I just wanted to emphasize that. But there is an app on our phones, right? Because we're building it, so right. It does exist, but it's not out there in the world yet. So let me see. Just trying to figure out where I should start to answer your question.
Would you like me to ask a simpler question before?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I feel like the second we get off of here, I'll be like, oh my god, here's a genius answer that you wanted. But
all right, so let me ask you another question, and it's a question you already stated, but you hate.
You see, I spend so much time trying to craft like messages around this kind of stuff that sometimes just talking about it like normally is hard, which is strange. But I also don't want to sound like a robot. But yeah, go ahead. Ask if you have more.
Well, Ryan, you are a role player, so tell us about who you are as a human being, as a person, as a role player, as whatever.
Yeah. So first, I'm a bit of a fraud as a role player because I didn't play my first actual D&D game until I already had Modern Sam, like the website up and people signing up
Mm-hmm.
and I was already building the app. And
Mm-hmm.
crazy enough, didn't even have D&Ders as like my target audience or anything. So
Mm-hmm.
what I did have in mind was people who were into personal development and fantasy. That
Mm-hmm.
was really those are really like the two key things that I started with. And how I got there to is just I was really interested in personal development because my whole life I felt like something was missing in me.
Mm-hmm.
Can get into shadow work or is what it's often called. I just kind of call it like introspection. But I was really obsessed with like self-help books and trying to figure out like how I could be better. I'm still kind of into those things, but ever since I
Mm-hmm.
started this project, I put a lot of this stuff aside. Um, so like, I really wanted to understand people because I felt like if I could understand them and help them, then I would be worthy of love on some level. Um, that's kind of the Enneagram 4 in me. Um, but yeah, I've just always been really into personal development, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I've also really struggled with maintaining any sort of, the actual things that these personal development books might tell you to do. Like, I didn't realize it was ADHD, right? So I would just burn through all these books to obtain knowledge about it, and that was just giving me dopamine to kind of like think about what was missing and what I could do, and like okay, well, if I just gather all this information, I'll know like which ones of these to actually believe, which ones are crap, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's a little bit of the personal development side of things, or self help, and then paired with just my love for fantasy. So I grew up, watching Jason and the Argonauts, Sinbad. Like
Mm-hmm.
Willow was actually my favorite movie as a kid. It's kind of
Willow.
yeah, Willow.
Mm-hmm.
Val Kilmer. Seen it?
No, I don't think I've ever seen Willow.
Oh, okay.
I think my friends have tried to talk me into seeing Willow, and I just haven't.
Well, yeah. So if you didn't watch it growing up, it might be kind of weird to watch now. But if you watch it now after seeing Lord of the Rings, it's really like a George Lucas interpretation of Lord of the Rings, right? There's Nelwyn, which are like
Mm-hmm.
halflings that go on a quest to save a baby who's supposed to become the future queen or something.
For me, it was Stargate. Like I was a big sci-fi guy. So I watched the Sci-Fi Channel a lot. Like my grandmother and I used to watch Trimmers together when I was a kid. Do you know what Trimmers are at all?
I know what tremors are, not in the context that you're asking. I don't think.
It's about this movie about these big worms that live on the ground and eat people.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know those.
So we would watch things like that. There was a show. I don't know if you remember this. It's called Darkstone, I believe. And it's all done with like puppets and stuff like that. Is it Darkstone? Stone Dark, something like
Dark
that.
Crystal? The Dark
Um,
Crystal?
Dark Crystal. Why am I saying Darkstone?
When you
Ah,
said you had to say
no.
puppets. That was a key word for me. I was like, Darkstone, huh? That sounds cool. Oh, I love the Dark
But
Crystal. That was a go-to also,
yeah, I was a big fan of the Dark Crystal, and I watched the new one when it came out on
Oh, it was
Netflix
amazing.
because they did a new.
Amazing.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. So you said you got started in D&D after the development process had begun on your app,
Yes, and
or was it the website?
yes. So I did have a little more, if you don't mind, to me jump back to it real quick.
Yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead.
because
Go
I
ahead.
think no, you're good. This is how we roll. I just don't want to lose it in my memory of in my ADHD memory. I already lost it. It's good. Okay, so the next thing was I was just gonna say, instead of getting into the D&D, I guess I don't know if you can say crowd or whatever. I was more into the like fantasy video games, right? So my brother played EverQuest. I was like coming of age. I don't know. I was probably 12 or something, and he had it on his computer. Yeah. And I have been trying to capture the feeling of the feeling like the rest of my life, but playing like my first MMORPG and just like jumping into a character, leveling up, and like the experience and going on quests, and like I was just like I've just been trying to capture that feeling. Like I don't know if it's just the dopamine swarm or whatever it was at that age.
No, I get it, because like no matter what, like nothing is going to compare to that first time I played World of Warcraft way back when, before there were any expansions to the game. It was just vanilla World of Warcraft, and nothing will compare to just being like going over to my friend's house and like playing games with him, and just like while he plays Kingdom Hearts or whatever, I'd play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good. This is perfect. What I'm doing right now is trying to save my comments on World of Warcraft and get to World of Warcraft and then join you in that. I'm almost there. So, because I agree 100% with what you said, because I played it for 6 months and then quit, but I was the 6 months were a lot of time. Yeah, so after EverQuest, it was my personal favorite, although I have a lot of like love and memories for EverQuest. So, in fact, the bestiary in Modern Sam, so a lot of the creatures are based on EverQuest, like mobs, right? But then, and then it was Dark Age of Camelot. That was like the one that really stole my heart, because it had the realm versus realm piece of it, which is a 3-faction PvP that was actually good. Is where World of Warcraft actually, when they introduced their PvP, like their more official PvP system or whatever. I don't know. It was like, I can't remember what it was called. Basically, they put you in a zone together, and there's objectives or whatever. I was like, I hate this. It wasn't what I wanted. But anyway, so yeah, EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot was really into World of Warcraft. I mean, there were a lot of other games in this mix too. Like, I can never remember exactly which games were, but there was Age of Conan, which I played. We played Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning, which was supposed to be the spiritual successor of Dark Age of Camelot, and that one kind of failed to live up to its... Well, it did fail to live up to its promises. In fact, funny enough, EverQuest and Dark Age of Camelot, even though they're old, they're still both going. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, WoW though was it really, that took everyone away from Dark Age of Camelot, and that's for the most part why people stopped playing a lot of those other ones. But it took things to the next level and set the bar really high, and nothing is really that I know of competed with it. Okay, I think that was all I had to catch up, but we could transition that right to, okay, I really loved this idea of becoming a character in your own story. I really desired courage. So in my life, what my first goal was, okay, I need love, I need romance, I need a wife. So my first goal was, okay, well, I need to get a job and I need to get paid a decent wage. And that all turned out. That worked. I went to school for graphic design, and I met my wife, who I'm married to now. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, I got that. So what's next? What's the next epic quest? And somehow, after doing some introspection, and I don't know if you've heard of Ikigai. Most people haven't, but maybe you have.
Ikigai?
Yeah, it's a Japanese concept for the reason for being. It examines 4 quadrants of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And you're supposed to do these exercises that finds the middle, the intersection.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now.
And for me, that was Modern Sam. And that was actually the point where I finally was like, okay, I'm tired of and I should say, things kind of all converge the same time, where I got my ADHD diagnosis, and my ADHD diagnosis actually almost practically cured my migraines. I had chronic migraines, so I had migraines every single day of my life.
I also get chronic migraines. Mine is normally I can't say it might just be heretical. My family on my mom's side have always had bad problems with migraines, and I'm no exception.
Yep, that's what I've said too. And my mom has migraines. I'm convinced that she has ADHD as well, but she's not gonna look into that. Not at her age anyway. Yeah, I had a friend who was just like, because I tried everything for migraines, like all the medications. So I went through with my doctor, I don't know, maybe 20 different meds that we tried over the years. I took triptans, which I'm sure you know all this if you have migraines, but they're an abortive medication, so they get rid of the migraine when it comes on, but no preventatives were working.
Actually, so to be honest with you, I try my hardest to take as little medication as possible, because when I was a kid, as I told you earlier, I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, and they didn't really know how to treat that well. I'm gonna say to the extent that they do now today. And so that the medication they gave me just made me a zombie. It was very hard for me to talk to people. It was very hard to make friends, anything like that, because the medication would just mess with me so much, especially my emotions. So,
and that's what I saw growing up with my cousins and just with loved ones, and that is what terrified me. I guess you could say it gave me a stigma, but it was also a reality of what I saw. And I didn't like how it changed their personality. So that's part of why I remember actually taking my first ADHD pill, where it kind of felt like this Matrix moment. I was like looking at it and I was just like, if it affects you in a negative way, you could just stop taking it. And the research that I did said that it doesn't, at least I understand, it doesn't have like a long-term effect on your personality or whatever. Yeah, I totally get that. I'm not really, and I don't think you're thinking I'm like advocating. I guess if I was advocating anything, it'd just be an openness to trying things that help people and figuring out what works for you. But none of the meds worked for my migraines though, right? That's Hemavig came out like 2 or 3 years ago, which is actually like a monthly injection, and I do that with a combination with stimulants, and I have maybe 1 or 2 migraines a month now, as opposed to chronic every day. It's pretty crazy that there's actually a link. I know this isn't what we're here to talk about, but there's actually a link between ADHD and migraines. Like, I had no idea. It's one of those things that when it entered my mind, it kind of did that, like that gif of the exploding. If who is that? Why can't I even think who that is right now? Steve Jobs? No, I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So I've done a lot of research. I know I'm going back to your question from earlier now, because I feel like I've got some sort of momentum. But I've done a lot of research on ADHD, right, to put together a business plan in the early days. I was trying to put this whole idea together and think about pitching, and we didn't really end up doing pitches. We ended up just doing the Kickstarter. But ADHD affects something like, I think it's 5% of the global population. And I mean, you can double check me on that. Maybe whoever's listening, double check. So yeah, it affects 5%. I should just Google it. I've already Googled it by now. Global population. But then around 50% of those people also struggle with anxiety disorders. Then there's a lot of other secondary conditions. A lot of people struggle with depression. I found out that there's also a strong connection between D&Ders, and a lot of them are autistic. And so a lot of our community is autistic. A lot of them are ADHDers. A lot of them have other conditions. They're all really excited. But it's just kind of interesting to, like, people who show up that you didn't expect. And I think is really cool and exciting, and it's an opportunity to help people more than I even thought we could. So it's really cool. It's just one of those things. What am I trying to say? I need to pause for a second.
Yeah, take your time. If anything, if you want me to, I can always just ask, because I've been writing down questions as you've been speaking.
Ooh,
So
let's
if
do
at
those.
any
Let's jump
point,
to those.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Getting
how long
lost
have you
in
been working on the? Yeah, you're all good. I get it, because I too will sit here, and it's actually a big problem while I'm role playing as well. Where I'll sit there and be trying to describe what my character is doing or something like that, and then I'll keep going on, and then I won't stop, and then I'll be like, okay, but what was I trying to do?
yeah. Okay. And
So
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I
Oh,
was
okay,
just gonna
okay.
say. I was only gonna say I've only played one D&D game now, and it was with the Modern Sam audience, and someone from Australia hosted it for me, like just so that I could say. Well, I mean, not just so I could say I played, but so I could experience it. So that's all. But I have played once, so I'm not a complete poser.
No, you're good. You're good. I love to roleplay. Roleplaying is a big hobby of mine. I don't get to do much of it these days because as a parent, you have dedications to real life over anything fantastical. But how long have you been working on the application?
Yeah. So the dream, which I know isn't the application, I've been working on to some degree, maybe for like 4 years, like where I've just been like writing down notes and dreaming about the idea. But yeah, it's like 500 days ago, like almost 2 years. That I've officially like launched the website where I was like, become who you were born to be and join us, kind of deal. Yeah, so it's a couple years, but as far as actual app development, like really working on the app, really the last 6 months. We've been refining, prototyping, and then the amount of content work. Oh, there's so much content work, especially just with how I want to build this and have. I'm actually writing a book. My first book is part of the first app that I've ever. So ADHD. It's an audio book, and one you can follow along. Like so, I'm just gathering my passion and energy. So, all of these apps that I like really wanted to do what I wanted failed, and I have this like addiction to downloading apps, trying them, and quitting them because they never have all of the ingredients I want, especially the gamification ones. I don't know if you've tried any of them. Like, so have you heard of Habitica?
No, I have not.
Heard of it?
No.
Wow, gosh, it's so crazy how like if you're into, I guess, the topic of productivity, right? And fantasy, like everyone, and then Finch is a self-care app, so that's the other. Those are our two competitors, really, two main competitors. Habitica and Finch. So Habitica is.
Oh, okay. I sorry. I pulled it up on a website. I do actually know about this, but I've never tried it, nor have I ever signed up for it or anything like that.
Yeah. So I don't think I knew it existed at first until I was like really doing the research for the business plan. And then I downloaded it to try it out, and it's funny because at first I was like, "Oh no, someone already did this. My dream is dead." But then it turned out that they weren't doing a lot of things, how I wanted to do them, and I don't like pixel art. So yeah, it brings me back. I mean, it brings me back nostalgia from Final Fantasy days and those games. But for me, I wanted a more modern flair. So the name Modern Sam kind of makes sense. So I got all the. Okay, let's not go there. I'm trying to show up as myself, so it's very. There's this idea of masking in the autistic and ADHD community, so I'm doing my best. Back to your question. Did I answer it, or did I just go off on another tangent? How would a robot even put this conversation together in a way that makes sense?
Well, we can say that for the sake of the conversation, that whenever I talk about the application, what I'm really talking about is this dream of yours, like the whole last process of the dream. And so one of the things that I have the biggest problem with, and you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm gonna have to keep using role playing as sort of like a medium to have this conversation.
That's what your podcast is about. So I get it.
I don't mind branching away from it, but I'm just, for the sake of the argument, I was just trying to give myself a little standing point.
There's ideas of role playing as therapy now too. Like this is something a lot of the community has brought to me that I didn't even realize is that people were doing D&D as therapy. Like, even for confidence building, you play a character with confidence. It's kind of like fake it so you make it. But
that's true. It is.
If it works.
There is something very nice about being able to completely leave your body and put your mind in another vessel, as it were, another imaginary vessel, whether that's in an MMO, you're LARPing, you're cosplaying, or sitting at a table with some friends, and being able to just remove your mentality from yourself and put it into something else, and that can give you insight into things that you yourself wouldn't normally consider or take into account. It quite literally is, well, not quite literally, but it's basically just walking a mile in someone else's shoes and gaining knowledge and wisdom from that effect.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things I've been having problems with when I roleplay is, generally speaking, my ADHD taking over and causing me to do about 10 other things at the same time. So what I wanted to know is, how is the application going to help me stop doing that, as it were?
10 other things at the same time. Yeah. Oh man, I guess I should actually talk about what the app does. That would be helpful.
Really quick before we get into that, though, I want to just say thank you, Jax, so much for joining the Patreon. I really appreciate you. Ryan came to me from the Roleplay Rejects. He's not a part of the Roleplay Rejects, but that's how he got in contact with me. So I felt it was only fitting for today's midroll to be about the Roleplay Rejects. So please give this a listen, and if you like them, please, please, please go tell them I said hello.
Hello, hello, hello. We are Roleplay Rejects, an actual play podcast that is all about new and unusual tabletop role-playing games. Our show explores various role-playing systems and their associated worlds while being guided by one of the Rejects as Game Master. Each story is entirely separate and designed to be listened to in any order, and comes complete with laughter,
bippity-boppity, I'm gonna take your lunch money.
and sadness.
I've never killed anything before.
Puns,
We struck Yukon Gold!
and whatever the hell this is. So what are you waiting for? Listen to Roleplay Rejects wherever you get podcasts.
So
we can also just go back to talking about anime if you want to. I mean, there's really no.
Well, when you talked about the vessel thing, and I saw your name, Mr. Island, it totally got me thinking about. I thought about changing my name to Lord Swordfart, and I think I actually did it temporarily in the community, but then I didn't say anything, and then I switched it back. It's like, people know me as Ryan, so I don't know. Anyway, but I could see why even doing that, like if I was to do that for this app, to step into this persona that I want to embody, right? That would help. And really, Sam, the idea of Sam was a persona that I wanted to embody as he's a helper, right? The idea is that he will help people with ADHD to reach their goals, achieve their dreams. For me, if I could help people actually realize that their dreams are possible, that would be the most fulfilling to me. But a lot of people need to start, a lot more basic or simple than that. And they just need, even some people just need motivation to drink water every day or something like that, or reminders. So the idea for the app is we have what we call town quests, right? Which are actually side quests. And you know how much we love those. So when you log in each day, there'll be a menu of town quests to select from, a limited menu, because we don't want to be overwhelming people. And this is really for people with ADHD who are struggling to choose what to focus on, right? So a lot of these apps have to-do lists. There's apps for ADHD that have them, and there's many to-do list apps. So this is one way I was like, okay, how could we be a little bit different and give people something where it feels like they can't decide in their own list in life, maybe these 5 options we give them, they'll really like one of these, or it'll just really speak to them on that day, or set their dopamine off, whatever. Like, one might be buy a friend a coffee. Okay? And you're like, okay, I can at least do this today. Or one might be like do a meditation or something like that. And you do that, and then you get points for that archetype. So for healer, I would be buy a coffee for someone, because it's kind of service oriented around doing something for someone else. So that's what the healer archetype is. So you do that, you get points in that, and of course limited points each day, so you can't just like cheat the system and become a level 10,000. But so that's actually a way of helping people with ADHD feel like they're getting things done each day and make them feel better, honestly. So that's one thing. And then we do have the to-do list also. And the to-do list, the difference is it's not just a to-do list, it's a to-do list that's connected to, okay, you get focus points, things you complete, and then those points aren't just useless, right? This is what a lot of apps, I think, get wrong, and they call it points, leaderboards, something. Basically, it's gamifying things that don't need to be gamified. Like, if you don't actually have like some sort of gamer's mindset, to me, throwing points and leaderboards and all that stuff on is really pointless if it doesn't have in-game utility to do something, is what I'm trying to say. So you get those focus points for doing your actual list of things that you would put in there as priority, and you can mark things, higher, lower priority, which is hard to do with ADHD also. But for the first version of the app, at least, you just kind of mark what priority it is, and then it'll bump it to the top of your list. And I look at it as like kind of like a bullet list or bullet journal. Have you heard of that? Okay. But the ones you mark top priority will go to the top, and then you complete those, you get focus points, and here's where the magic comes in. You spend those focus points to hunt for or search for rare beasts, which are, to me, the bread and butter. It's like what makes Modern Sam amazing, and it's what really keeps me excited. And it's kind of like if Pokemon, in a sense, of finding these rare creatures, right? So we have like the different rarity levels, which comes from like inspiration of aiming on how difficult they are to beat. So like, I call them purple mobs. I can't remember the con, like the consider system, the con of difficult mobs in WoW. I can't remember if they're red or purple. But anyway, so we have green, which is, like easy, then yellow, which is about the same. You have like 50-50 chance of defeating it. And then red, which is difficult, and purple, which is like almost impossible. So you go search for these creatures with points you've earned doing the things you need to do. You have a chance of defeating them and collecting that card, which it's not an NFT, of course, but it's kind of like an NFT in the sense that I guess that they're limited, right? They're not one of a kind, but there's going to be it's like an epic weapon, I guess, in a game, right? It's just they can be extremely rare. So for version 1 of the app, you're just kind of collecting those cards for now, but then in future versions of the app, we're planning to make it so you can actually use them for some sort of strategy card game, against each other with other real players and things like that. And then meanwhile, while you're doing that, you also have a tent in the game that you can visit to do more of like the self-care things. So that's where we'll have meditations. And if you complete a meditation, you basically get mana. We're calling it something else in the app, but you get mana, and that powers up your mirror in the game, which you can use for an ultimate attack when you are fighting. So So really, it's all connected, and that is probably the most challenging thing about all this is just coming up with some sort of system that actually all works together. And then, and then lastly and while you're doing all of this, you're actually going through a narrative, a story where you are the character, right? So you know how you like when you read books and it says I, and you're kind of putting yourself. I think most people do at least put yourself into their shoes, but you are the hero, the champion, or the veiled one is what silver veil champions in the modern Sam are called, because that's the world. Like there's world building, right? It's the silver veil is the transition. Is what I call it between our world and the world of modern Sam. Silver veil, yeah. So in the beginning of the app, actually, you're gonna touch the mirror like on your phone, and it's gonna vibrate and all these things, and then you basically enter through that world, and it's kind of like you're a clone in modern Sam. So anything you do in real life, the idea or the hope is that things you do in real life. This is probably what I should have started with. Things you do in real life level up your in-game character, and I mean that's really what I've always wanted. And I will say that part of my hesitation with this project is probably that I didn't know a lot of other people in real life who had thought that was that exciting of an idea. So,
I think it's a very exciting idea. I have been listening. I really like the idea of having a video game type thing to help you with your ADHD.
yeah.
Like what we were talking about right there. I do have a question though. So the biggest problem with ADHD is that it's hard to focus on something. Do you have not to mention it's really difficult to get into something in the first place because you're getting sidetracked by so many different things. So do you have a way of like getting people motivated to use the app in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, I think those things I was talking about with the cards, I think that has been.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we do. We people who like to hyperfixate do like to look at a lot of cards. I found out.
I am going to pull up my website and cheat here just to make sure I get the right, because I have all this outlined on modernsam.com/about. But okay, so I call it dopamine wizardry, and I don't know if you've ever, you probably haven't read any books on gamification, but there's this idea of 8 core drivers for gamification, and obviously games work for people with ADHD. They love games.
Oh yeah.
So if we can tap into those, I think we're going to really be onto something. So that actually drove a lot of the decisions for everything. So we have epic meaning and calling, which we've kind of talked about. Become the hero in your story. Have routine and structure, which is kind of sometimes referred to as scaffolding for people with ADHD. At least that's kind of this idea of building, just some sort of system you can expect each day. And I know for people who are autistic, this really is important to them even more so. Like my wife really wants routine, and she doesn't like things to be expected in her day, even though of course it happens. But so the routine and structure, right, is okay. Well, you can log into the app each day, and you can do the specific things that are bettering you. But then there's a limit to how much you can actually improve in the app each day, right? Because we don't want to take people into the app for hours and hours.
That was actually
my next
question.
Yeah, I've philosophized about this idea for a lot, but ultimately, I came to the conclusion that if people use the app and they get to a point in their personal development where they don't need it anymore, then the app was successful, and that's great. But I think it'll be a tool that people use, regardless. Okay, so then there's development and accomplishment, which is like visual indicators of advancement. Leveling up, getting stars, achievements, things like that. Risk and reward. That's where okay. I'm trying not to digress into the word bestiary right now, which should be called bestiary, and it's really maddening that it's not. if you're just now hearing this and a little confused, it's just Google bestiary and see how it's spelled, and you'll go crazy. So yeah, rare items and relics, things like that. That's risk and reward. Unpredictability and curiosity, right? Like, what am I going to see when I log in today? What kind of town quests are in store for me? What kind of creatures am I going to see? That is very dopamine feeding. Scarcity and discovery of beasts and things like that. Some sort of creative autonomy in the app. You get an archetype, and then you can choose your house. There's gonna be a lot of quests around magician that are going to be art centered and things like that. Social influence and relatedness. Okay, so really, I think the last component of this, though, is probably one of the biggest things, which I haven't really touched on, which is community. And I don't know if you've heard of body doubling, but it's not in version 1 of the app, but it's definitely something we're going to be implementing because it helps people focus. I'm sure you've heard of focus timers and Pomodoro technique and things like that. Okay, so that's in the roadmap too, to have a focus timer in the app that you can use. It's not going to be in version 1, and version 1 is really just like in December we're launching alpha version 1 of the app, and then we're going to iterate and improve on that at the end of time. So I don't know if at the end of time, but maybe each month or every couple months we'll release new features. Big features would probably be more like yearly or quarterly, depending on how big they are. But the idea of body doubling is basically a focus timer where you join someone else or before that Pomodoro technique, and you don't talk during this session. If you do, then you're not gonna get focused on. But you're just kind of there in solidarity, and it just makes people feel a sense of community. I'm sure there's a better like scientific definition for why it works. Like I have the words for, but I found that it has helped. Like in our Discord community, we have a body doubling just room. So when people are like, okay, I'm really struggling to get this done, I'm gonna jump in here. If anyone else is struggling to get something done, they can jump in. And sometimes people say hi or something like that, but for the most part, it's just you're just there to focus on your task. You might say, I think it's helpful to say what you're doing, but you don't have to. So that has been really helpful, just having like support, and it kind of gives a sense of accountability too, because that's also important for Adhd. So, I mean, really, this whole thing feels like a grand experiment, and God, I hope it works. It's like, and I think it will, and I'm confident, but I'm also, I also can't help but be like, what if it doesn't work? Just because that's who I am. I like to question things. Even when I think this is better than anything out there, I still question things. I guess maybe that's what makes this so unique. But yeah, I will say we have 12,000 people who've signed up on the website.
Right.
That's pretty crazy.
That's insane.
And they took the quiz, right? That was the idea. Is the archetype quiz. People love quizzes, and I think the quiz actually is what has really sold people on this idea, because they see the questions are very intentional. They love the questions, right? Because we've all taken quizzes where we're like, this is stupid, this question's dumb, and you just don't. I mean, at least for me, like I immediately doubt quizzes based on their questions. So, so people take that, and then at the very end of the quiz is a little comment box, and can't tell you how many people have said, I have been looking for an app like this. I need this. Get this done now. That kind of thought process. So people are really excited about it. I mean, I have had a lot of people who've helped me, like, just work on this as volunteers, like for voiceover people. The Discord community was like originally just completely people who offered to build it, because I had no idea how to run a Discord. I still don't. That's been really cool. So it's just, obviously there's a lot of people who believe in the idea. I think that answers your question, but if it doesn't, I'm happy to go back in time. whatever your question was.
No, it's all right. Listen, as someone
Okay.
who deals with as you know, you fellow ADHD person, I sort of just kind of let the conversations flow and let tangents be tangents. I'm happy to hear it all, and I'm happy to share it all too.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing, well, I keep saying the biggest thing, but one of the things I'm curious about is how is this going to how do I put this? Is this more? Is this more of a social app, or is this more of a singular focused app, like a person focused app? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Okay. Is it more? What was? Can you repeat it just one more time?
Is it more focused on the person who's using it? Is it more focused as a social app for people with ADHD?
Okay, so yeah, it's more personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a personal app.
Mm-hmm.
You could use it just by yourself and really never engage or talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the social component of being able to do that is really important to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at least the idea at the launch of the app is probably that Discord is going to drive a lot of the community stuff at first.
Okay.
Just while we work on features like the different houses. For instance, we have 3 houses: Hibernia, Albion, and Midgard, and you'll be able to chat with friends in your own house and things like that. And we have the idea that you'll be able to make guilds and groups and all that. It's just a matter of like what is available at launch, But so that, yeah, you would be using it yourself, and you would have people that see what you're achieving and root for you. You'll be able to join quests, with friends, or assign, like, one feature request was to be able to send other people a task or whatever. That's something you'll be able to do too. So maybe you wanted to, I don't know, record a podcast or whatever, or edit a podcast or something like that.
All right, you're speaking my language. I like it.
Yeah, you could definitely put that as a goal, and then you could have subtasks. Reach out to Ryan, whatever, stuff like that. And then also, we're going to. I'm just gonna say we're going to, because we are. It's just I don't know why I struggle with this, but I hate to say we're gonna do something that's not in the first version. But I'm just gonna.
Right. Well, no, I get that too, because again, someone who gets sidetracked very easily. I don't like to tell people I'm doing something until like something has been, at least like bare minimum, I have hard evidence of it existing, and it comes out of a I want people to know that I am actually doing this because I know my own bullshit, and my bullshit is sometimes I'll get so busy into something that I'll completely forget about something else. And I try not to. I get where you come from.
Well, I mean, yeah, this whole app is really me just not wanting to clean my garage. Like that's like I just joke that once the app is done, it'll help motivate me to clean the garage. But
that's funny.
Oh yeah,
that's actually pretty funny.
If you, I don't know if you've heard of Goblin Tools, but I don't mind giving them a shout out. But basically, they use ChatGPT or some sort of AI to generate like subtasks. So you just go there, you put in what you need to do, and you click a button, and it gives you subtasks. And it's very simple, and I think that would work for a lot of people who just have trouble breaking down tasks and want a checklist. That is a feature we're working on also in the app, so that people can do that, because I know that's a struggle people have. So I just wanted to mention that, but there's a lot of websites that do things like that now, of course, with AI.
That's pretty cool. I'm actually looking at it right now. And again, everything that we've been talking about, I will put down in the show notes below. That way they can see it, including a link to all of your stuff as well. But yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can change like fidelity of how much you want it to break down tasks and things like that. So, and I think that was built for ADHD also. I've talked to the person a little bit. Someone actually tried to copy his app and put their own app in the app store. So I reached out to them and I was like, is this you? Because it was like a goblin character. Basically, they just, the idea isn't owned by that person, right? Because it's using AI, but the fact that they basically copied the goblin tools, it almost looked like the same like logo and kind of stuff. But anyway,
I really like this. I just put in because whenever something like this pops up, I try to give it like a simple task just to kind of see how it works. And I asked it to make me a grilled cheese.
Yeah.
Make a grilled cheese, and it quite literally, all I had to do was press the button to make a list. Like I didn't have to sign up for it or anything. I just went in there and did it. And it quite literally broke it all down into subtasks. Gather the ingredients: bread, cheese, butter, margarine.
Yeah.
Preheat a frying pan or griddle over medium heat all the way through to remove from the heat and serve.
It's so funny you did that because I think my first question when I wanted to see if it would work was how do I beat Zelda or something like that. It's like, and it actually did it.
Listen, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Listen, I do have to, man. I have to cut off our conversation here in a minute because I got to take the kids to school. And
actually, now is a good place to stop if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
It is. We've been recording for about an hour, and this has been a lovely time. If we want to talk some more, we can always get into a second episode if you want to.
Yeah. I mean, it's up to you. I'd love to if you want, and if there's anything I need to clarify more. But if you think this is good enough, I accept it.
Oh gosh, yes. I was more than happy to talk to you about this sort of stuff. We had our small talk. We talked about a lot of relatable things.
Yeah.
Everything. I'm very happy. So really quick before I let you go, and you have to go be a parent, and I understand what that's like. Tell me what the website is, the name of the application, the website, and where they can find you, and I will link all that below.
Yeah. So modernsam.com. That's where your hero's journey begins. You can take the quiz, get your archetype, and read a lot more about everything. The website explains the app a lot better than I can, so that's what I would check out.
And where can they find you, good sir? Also through Modern Sam?
Yeah.
I see here that you have everything. You have the quiz, you see the Kickstarter, you have the About up there, you got Home. Is there a way to get in touch with your Discord there? Oh, right down here at the bottom.
Yeah. If you take the quiz too, it sends you on an email journey to get updates, and you'll also be invited directly through email to those channels. So really tried to build it in a way where there's, question of steps. If you take the quiz, you gotta take the quiz. Or you could go to the bottom of the website. That works too. Ryan
Thank you very much.
At Modern. I'll just say email. People can email me. Ryan at modernsam.com. That is also on the website though, so it'll all be there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ryan, for coming on and talk with me. I really do appreciate you, boss.
Thank you. And I was gonna say I really didn't ask enough questions about you, but I guess.
It's fine. This is all about you. It's all about you. They've heard enough about me. I'm a big old crybaby. They already know.
But I need to learn more about you. Okay, I got you.
Nah, it's all right. Cool. All right, thank you, Mr. Ryan. And that's all I got for today. I will see you guys next Thursday. And I appreciate you all coming to listen and sticking around this far. As of course, everything that you've listened to or heard about, I've tried to include links in the description down below. Please feel free to use that. Also, feel free to come and check out our Discord. I'd really appreciate having you there, and I would love to have a place to communicate with you. And as always, thank you, Kate Mcgee, for being a Master at Arms patron. I really do appreciate you, for real. You guys, everybody who is a patron member, and everybody in my Discord, you guys make me feel like I can do this every day, all day. And I appreciate you. And I'll see you guys next Thursday. Thank you all so much for listening. Take care now. Oh, and also, stay in character.